Welcome back to Success is Weird and Messy. I'm your host, Kathleen Gabriel. Each week, I talk with entrepreneurs about their stories, the ups, the downs, how they turn their biggest challenges into stepping stones for growth. Today, I'm joined by Siobhan Barros-Limón, the founder of SBL Advantage Consulting. She grows high-performance teams and enables businesses to scale their impact to build a lasting legacy. She works with businesses serving or owned by underrepresented, underserved, or economically distressed communities. Siobhan, it's great to talk to you today.
I'm so excited to get to talk to you as well.
This is so good. So I gave a little bit of a teaser of what you do. Tell me about your business.
Yeah. All right. Well, I am in business operations and strategy. And for a lot of people, they're like, what does that mean? It's all the stuff that you didn't get in business to do. So there are a lot of people out there that have these big visions and the kind of impact that they want to make on the world. But then they get into the business and it starts to grow. And there's all these things that they know that they need to do that they can't get to. And even more, the ones that a lot of times keep people up are the things I know I don't know what I need to do about this. So, oh God, what do I do? And in particular, because I'm working with visionary leaders who haven't necessarily spent their career in the corporate world or entrepreneurial world, even, there's a lot of questions for them. And it's overwhelming to build a business, especially when you start to get traction and grow. And yeah, the revenue's coming in, but here's all the expenses that are coming in too. How do you grow your business without scaling all of that complexity and costs and do it in a way that actually is honoring your values and your vision? Because at some point, businesses are at the very basis of it there to make a profit. If you're not making a profit, you're not going to be around for very long. And the name of the game is to stay in business long enough to have the kind of impact that you envision that had you go out on your own, create something that someone else hasn't done before. So I do the like systems and processes to make things streamlined and efficient and all of those business terms. But at the end of the day, I really am just that trusted partner and strategist to help realize the vision of the founder and the real impact and legacy that they can make in this world.
And I mean, honestly, that's the whole fractional model of it's not time to hire on a multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars employee that,
Exactly.
your COO that you hire on full time. That's for when you have expanded and grown
Yes.
and built that company, but you're not going to get there without that level of support that that employee would have given you.
Yeah. And a lot of times when business owners are expanding the business, one of the most, you know this, being in HR, one of the most confronting things is bringing people into your business because it's your
Yeah.
baby. Your blood, sweat, and tears in this thing. And what if you pick someone who's wrong for the business, who takes you for a ride, or just isn't good at what they said they were? That's a big commitment, especially when we're talking at the leadership level. So a
Yeah.
lot of times people will kind of like start small, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely makes sense. And maybe that's what you do. There is a pivot point where if you don't have the expertise of someone who's been to the rodeo a few times, you're not going to know about those potholes that are coming that they've already gone through and are like, no, 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 come over here.
Hmm.
you know? And so the fractional model really allows for business owners to get the expertise, the understanding, the life experience. I had so many people in my 20s tell me, "You have no idea. You think you know it all." And I was like, "I do know it all, and anything I don't know, I can learn." There's a degree of going through the ringer that until you've actually been through that ringer, you cannot understand what it's like on the other side. Parenthood is probably the best example.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. You
You know,
know,
people tell you raising a kid is hard, but oh man. Because all of the stuff that you had about your upbringing, that gets shoved right into your face. And you're like, you're stuck with either I'm going to be just like my parents and make it, I saw that's what made me good, or not doing anything like that.
Yeah.
And neither one is an effective way to raise a child because that child isn't you and
Yeah.
you aren't those parents. For those of us in marginalized community, we have generations of things that have happened, whether it's trauma or just bad skills, no skills passed on. Like I was never taught how to negotiate. That's one of the things I had to learn being a business owner.
Yeah, no, it's a valuable thing that you brought up in terms of when you're young and passionate and a go-getter to be able to say anything I don't know I can learn. As long as you stay open to that,
Yeah,
absolutely keep learning your whole life.
yeah,
But part of learning is doing.
yeah, yeah,
And you're absolutely right. I mean, is this part of why you ended up focusing on underserved communities
yep,
because you saw the ways in which your life, your community, your extended community
yeah.
had been underserved and really could use that extra support?
Yeah. Well, a part of it is like, there's the euphemism that everyone talks about. Why don't they just pull themselves up by their bootstraps? One of the things I love to say is, okay, there are four sets of boots over there. I have pulled so freaking hard. None of them have bootstraps anymore. So give me a new set of boots and I will pull by those bootstraps,
Yeah,
right? So like the game is rigged to a degree. Like that's part of the game, right? If you're going
yeah.
to play the capitalist game, you have to traffic in that environment. And so I was taught, no, brown people don't get to own businesses. If you are happen to be successful, happen to be, which you most likely won't. And there is some truth to that, right? Because like I
Yeah,
think it's 97% of businesses don't make it to 5 years.
that's
So
true.
there's a truth to it's hard to make it with a small business. But also, the other narrative was if you are successful, they're going to come and take it from you because you haven't
Mm,
been doing this. We haven't had successful businesses, so we don't know the rules of the road.
right.
So I stayed away. Not only did I stay away from having a business, though I have an entire ecosystem of people around me who are entrepreneurs, and they're like, you're so great and entrepreneurially spirited. Why don't you open your own business? Oh, hell no. I want the security of a job, a paycheck. I need a boss to tell me what to do. Like,
Mm, yeah.
that was the whole worldview that I had that got exploded during the pandemic when it was like, am I going to go back into corporate, into some job that doesn't really fit just to get the paycheck? That's not what I'm here for. And I've got a son now, so I'm not just thinking about me, I'm thinking about setting up his life and the world around him for him to succeed and be able to stand on my shoulders. Like I got to stand on the hard blood, sweat, and tears that my parents went through. I watched my dad being unemployed for almost 5 years. I
Mm,
think it was a little bit less, but he had odd jobs here and there. But what that did to his sense of himself, honestly, he's never fully recovered. And then I was laid off during the pandemic and unemployed for 18 months. Shortly after I started consulting, my husband was laid off. So I have a very, very intimate experience of what it's like to be unemployed, particularly when you are fully skilled, fully able, fully like up for the game out there. I was interviewing. There were days when I had 3 interviews a day with
oh,
different
wow.
companies. Like I am a go-getter. I was not getting a job because I wasn't pulling on those bootstraps.
Well, and I think a lot of people are going through that right now.
Exactly.
The job market right now is wild. The amount of people that we have at every level
Yeah.
who are out of work, looking for work, underemployed.
Mhm.
So you might have a job, but does it actually pay for the basics of your life?
Yeah.
We're in a real point of flexion
Yeah.
right now, and I think that this is part of how we get through it is coming together in community
Yep.
and making it part of our mission to say, okay, where do we find people
Yeah.
who share values and how
Yeah.
do we amplify those into and in service of
Yeah.
business success?
Yeah.
Because, like you say, At the end of the day, it's still a business. It
Uh-huh.
still has to make that profit and it still has to have that business success. But there's a lot of ways to have a business.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I'm particularly passionate about is okay, and I do this outside of business. Like, you tell me the game, you tell me the rules, and I will figure out how to play the game and get there to the rule. And then the things that you didn't think about making a rule for, I'm going to take advantage of those pieces to my, like, let me get this set up in such a way that we can push past the predictable, that
Yeah.
we can create that hockey stick of growth, but in a way that you're not having to sacrifice your values for the profit. When you are having to make hard decisions, because the hard decisions are there, that's part of being a business owner. What do you focus on? What do you prioritize? And you don't have anyone telling you what to do. You're the one saying what's the next step. You're the visionaries plotting out the course. Well, in those situations, all you have is your past experiences. And a lot of us don't have experience of entrepreneurship successful. And there's so many ways. Like, what is a successful entrepreneur?
Right.
One of the things that I tell the people that I work with, look at how many years you've been in business and how many other businesses have closed in the time that you have been in business. That just by the self, the simple fact that your business is still in existence is a success. And a lot of people have a hard time hearing that. But like, I have one client, she's been in business for 10 years and she feels like she is not an entrepreneur at all. And I'm like, you've made it further than 97%.
Yeah.
97%. Now, how do we have you rise so that you have the experience of success? And that is where legacy gets made, because people who are out to do something in the world that have a mission that they've decoded for themselves, what they're here to provide for the world and contribute. One of the things that like just really lit my fire was discovering, oh, one of the actual pillars and tenets of capitalism is having a certain percentage of our population who are willing and able to work being unemployed.
Yeah.
That's part of the system that is
Yeah.
built in. Now, I also understand from the economic perspective, you do have to have a mismatch of supply and demand that predicates that people be unemployed. But what if we were able to create some way for people to express that opportunity that they have to contribute to the community? If they aren't doing it in the traditional way, small business, that is the dream, right? That's the American dream. You can do it. But there's all these resources out there that I knew as my individual, thinking I can't do a business. There are free resources all over the place. Now, some of them are drying up right now,
But
but the thing is, for me, is like, I know I'm not going to shift the capitalist landscape by
yeah.
myself. I know that. I'm not an economist. I really love being an armchair economist and I follow stuff, but I'm not going to be the inventor of whatever economic model gets moved into as we progress in this capitalist experiment. But what I do know is if you bring the right people together, and you start having uncommon conversations, innovation comes to life. So, as Kathleen is out defining what it looks like to be successful as a fractional, you have a point of view and a set of experiences and expertise that I don't have. But the combination of the two of us, that becomes stronger. And it's part of what I weave into all of the building of businesses and teams, whether it's the systems, the processes, the hiring of people, is my indigenous worldviews.
Yeah.
So one of the things that is a big piece for us is our hair and how our hair is connected to our ancestors, our culture, our belief of the Great Spirit. And one of the things, especially that's really close to my heart, is my son's hair is long. We've never cut it. He's 6 years old, and I braid it on a 3-day cycle. And part of that is there's a connection when I'm sitting there with my son, sometimes for an hour because it's painful when you have
Hmm.
long curly hair like he does, but that connection, and it's one of the things that is a cultural part of our heritage of that braiding of hair there is a connection for that, but it's also the symbolism of one strand by itself has only so much tension strength. But when you bring them together in multiple strands and then you braid those strands, that integration, it is the integration that is where we start to find innovation. It's by bringing people together. It's by allowing for the person over there who's not quite talking. Give them some space. Maybe they have something to contribute. It could be that they just need time to process, but setting up the team in such a way that it is expected that there will be silence in our meetings to allow for the people who need the silence to process what we're talking about. It's that quiet time, that white space where there's nothing in the calendar, that ideas are allowed to pop in. So, in addition to the like grind and streamline and efficiency and all of that, how do we build in cycles of silence? How do we build in rest? How do we rejuvenate our workforce so that we're not just running through them? I worked at a company where they literally said, in open office, look, it's not a problem. They're straight out of college. There'll be another batch next year. In the
Mm,
open office. Like,
yeah.
what? What? Who wants to
Yeah.
work in this environment? But they want to work in the environment because of the brand name. Okay. That is poisoning us across our culture. If I can create little ecosystems with the individual businesses and elevate their impact, expand their reach, at some point, there is going to be a critical mass of people who are building regenerative businesses in such a way that the marketplace is going to be like, oh, what's that? Give me some of that. That's how I see my son being able to have a vastly different world to grow up in.
Yeah.
My legacy, essentially.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is a big mission. But how has that changed over time? Because you even said yourself you weren't originally looking at, okay, my one thing I'm going to do is to go into business because you were fed a narrative, and lots of us are fed these toxic narratives of, oh, other people can try, but not you.
Yeah,
And yeah, you can. Yeah,
yeah,
you really can. And you have a lot to contribute.
yeah,
So you started from, oh, wait, maybe this is the right time to really examine and fulfill what my life's mission is. So once you started, and once you started going out, getting clients, working with businesses, what changed about the way you do business, what you offer, who
yeah.
you're working with, anything at all?
Well, initially it was, I wasn't even relating to myself as being a business owner. I'm just consulting.
I will say to every consultant out there, you're a business owner.
Right? It took me a hot minute and a lot of pushing from my wonderful, amazing, supportive husband saying, you're a business owner. I think I was consulting for like 6 or 8 months before I even registered for my EIN. And then it was
Yeah.
another stretch before I was willing to go to the city and actually register the DBA. And in the beginning, I was looking for people like me, people who just had no
Yeah.
idea that holy cow, there's all these free resources that they will teach you how to build a business.
Yeah.
So, like, let me get my people. Let's get all the people who don't realize that they're entrepreneurs to get them to realize this and go use these things. And then I'll like shepherd you through using all of the free resources, which yeah, that's one way to do it. It's tiring.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Especially because there's a lot of people when you're not realizing you're an entrepreneur or a business person, it's
Yeah.
highly unlikely that you have money to invest into a consultant. And in particular, when you're not around the corporate world, business operations, what's that? Business
Yeah.
strategy. Aren't I already doing my strategy? Isn't the strategy like how I offer what I say? Like what more is there? I don't understand. What do you actually do every day? And so my passion really is for lifting up the little guy, but there's a reality that I had to come to terms with, and I fought. I fought real hard because I've been told so many times, no, you can't do that. You have to do it this way.
Yeah.
And I am very much a I will show you kind of a person. But there are some realities like businesses need to make profit to continue to exist. Those realities, if you want to argue with them, you're probably going to lose. Similar to if you want to argue with gravity, gravity's going to win. So rather than trying to fight the horse and get it to go my way, let's see, maybe I can ride the horse in the direction that it's going and then build a relationship and convince it to go my way. Inside of the world of business, what does that look like? Well, I'm a business. I need to make a profit. And making a profit is inside of the model of capitalism. So maybe I got to get good at this capitalism game. All right. So if I'm going to be a successful business, what is one of the tenets that I need? Paying clients.
Yeah.
And I need to have
Yeah.
the time to do the work for paying clients. And some of that time can't go to the little guy who doesn't actually realize they have an opportunity and convincing them, yes, you're an entrepreneur. Yes, you're a business owner. And yes, you can do this. So moving upstream to work with people who actually have some traction in their business, that they've proved that what they offer is something that the market wants. And now they just need the support and the experience to grow that. Well, I have that. So let me provide it to those people so that I can get my business stable, my life stable, so that I can reach down and pull up. Similar to when there's someone drowning, you can't go and just by yourself get them to stop drowning. They will pull you under, not because they want to pull you under, but because simple physics.
Yeah.
Why lifeguards have the little buoy
Yep.
because simple physics. You don't follow the rules of simple physics, you're going to get the consequences. So by moving upstream, it's not necessarily my biggest passion to work with people that are already successful, but there's momentum that I can draft off of them being successful, pulling me into the success, and then also pulling up. So I do have a section of time every week that is allowed for doing the kind of work that just like, yeah, I just got them to understand it's not about the product you're selling. You are the product. You are the expertise that the people want, not your skincare line. Your skincare line is amazing. It is the vehicle for your brilliance to make a difference for your customers. So by empowering her, it fills my cup to know there's 10 more people who know this. There's 5 more people. That aggregation over time. And then also starting to recognize business growth can be linear, but if you're strategic about it and you build the small pieces, you lay down the foundation, you define your true north. So when you're trying to figure out, should I do this or should I do that? Should Saban spend time with a paying client delivering the services that she promised? Or talking to someone who doesn't realize that they're even a business owner.
Yeah.
This is important, but this needs to be prioritized because I have, like you said, a very lofty mission. So if I'm over here playing piddlywinks, I'm not going to make it. I just,
Yeah.
physics.
That's a huge change. That's a huge change in mindset
Mhm.
from saying, well, you could help start people or you
Yes.
could work with the people who are already started.
Exactly. And
Uh,
it took some humility because I
Yeah.
wanted to be like, no, I will show you. Us little dogs, we're gonna band together and we're gonna push over the big guy. We're gonna be David against the Goliath.
Mm-hmm.
Except that there's how many Goliaths and how many Davids.
Yeah.
Now, if we could get all the Davids together and unified, but we've demonstrated that we're not so good at
Yeah.
that. Somewhat because there's people like me who are like, no, I'm not going to go it your way. I'm going to do it my way.
No, that's all part of the journey. That's all part of what we do. And I think part of what I'm hearing from you is you've spent enough time in that keeping yourself small
Yeah,
mindset that
yeah,
part of your mission is bringing other people out of it.
yeah,
Instead of staying small, you're going to help them think big
yeah,
and win big
yeah,
and really achieve those enormous, impactful, important missions because that, we change the world one little bit at a time,
yeah.
but that's how we get there.
And the other thing too is I don't think it's a mistake that I came into business at this time. And a lot of us, regardless of where we fall in the political spectrum, the social spectrum, and all of those other things that are feeding the news cycle these days, when there's this kind of unrest, when the leadership that we as a country starts to change in nature and how we are on the world stage, that kind of shift, when those seismic shifts are happening, is the opportunity for the little pieces to aggregate and create the hockey stick. I know it starts with an E and the word escapes me, not linear, but it's
Yeah.
exponential. That's the
Thank
word I'm
you.
looking for. I just had to go to the math side of my brain.
But yeah, creating that exponential growth. Totally.
It's not going to happen by ourselves.
No,
The reality is, in this world, if we want to do something big, we have to do it with others. That whole good old adage, I don't remember who said it, but if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go together. And I am clear we are not doing a very good job of going together. So right now, I'd build a coalition around me and then have that expand and expand. Little bits of consistency. Just keep at it. Discipline, repeat. It's that kind of discipline that changes the world over time. And it's only going to happen over time. It's not going to be an immediate shift. It'll be interesting to see what the history books say about this time in our lives. And I'm excited to be part of who's writing the history.
yeah, exactly that. Saban, thank you so much again for coming on the show today.
Yeah.
Where can people find you online?
I am at sbladvantage.com. And of course, you can also find me on LinkedIn. Saban is a very unique name, at least in my world. Now, if we were in the UK, that would be a different story. Anybody who is either Irish or from that area that knows the actual name as pronounced correctly is Siobhan. But one of the things that I do to honor my mom is that she said, look, they may pronounce it that way, but I'm your mom and I get to decide how your name is pronounced. So,
That's fine by me. I pronounce it however you tell me to. So that's all good.
yeah, but finding me on LinkedIn or on the website either is a really good way to find me.
Excellent. Well, we will have Saban's links in the show notes. So thank you everyone for listening. You can
Yes.
find Success is Weird and Messy wherever you get your podcasts. And it totally helps us if you follow, rate, and review. And if you like the show, tell a friend. We'll see you next week.